President Obama, as I mentioned before the commercial break, going back to Washington after 2 weeks on vacation in Hawaii, and he's expected to try to make some ground in his second-term agenda. But unrest in the Middle East is commanding the world's attention this weekend. A resurgent al-Qaeda now on the offensive in Iraq, and you can't miss it. You can't turn away. It is happening. They've killed at least 34 soldiers and civilians today alone in the city of Fallujah. Critics are now pointing the finger at President Obama for a so-called foreign policy of retreat, which they say has left Iraq's fledgling government very vulnerable. Let's bring in the Fox News political insiders. They join us now. John Leboutillier, former Republican congressman for New York. Doug Schoen, former pollster, and President Bill Clinton for him, and a Fox News contributor as well. Pat Caddell, we're hoping, will join us as well. We're having some technical issues with his satellite shot, but we'll bring him in as we can. Fallujah isn't just some city. This is a city that we spent American lives in treasure securing.
Right. It is both symbolic and critically important because it is the clearest sign yet that our democratic experiment that we worked so hard for and we gave so many lives to is falling apart in Iraq as the Sunni Shiite fighting continues. And Harris, the sad thing is, it's being replicated throughout the Middle East. There isn't an American presence.
John, Secretary of State John Kerry came out today and said, we're going to respond to this, but you're not going to see U.S. combat troops in harm's way. What does that mean?
It means that's from the guy that voted for the war before he voted against the war. It means...
I didn't know you could vote twice.
Well, actually you can. And like Obama, they're on every side of everything in the Middle East. And the number one reason the Middle East is in the flux that it's in is the United States is no longer seen as a stable something where we stand by somebody. Now, if you stand by the Egyptian military, the Israeli government, the Saudi royal family, and you stay with them, now you have somewhere to build from. Instead, we've sold out every one of them. The only thing this president believes in, President Obama, is himself. He doesn't believe in any other governments or leaders, and he's betrayed all of them. And that is now coming home to roost.
Doug, how problematic politically is this for President Obama, with critics already saying that it's his foreign policy that got us to this point?
Oh, I think it is, because while the American people don't want foreign entanglements, they don't want impotence either. When you look at Turkey, which we had not mentioned, when you look at Syria, Lebanon, we look weak everywhere, and what John was suggesting, Harris, is absolutely the case.
With the president now, through John Kerry, the Secretary of State, making a statement today, does that mean that it comes onto his scope as a priority?
Well, yeah. The thing with Kerry and Obama together is they have an agenda for the second term, which is make as many deals as they can have. They want accomplishments. They want things to talk about other than Obamacare, successes, they think. And they think any deal is a success. But the Syrian arms deal, not working out. The Iranian arms deal, not working out. The Afghan withdrawal agreement, not working out.
You know, it's interesting. Republicans had to drag around the albatross of the Iraq war for years. But finally, when it was over, we were told that we had victory there. Right? So does this mean that this current president has lost the war that we formerly won?
I think he is losing the war. He's losing the geopolitical battle. Bottom line, Russia, through Vladimir Putin and the Chinese, are ascendant. The Russians have succeeded, at least temporarily, in taking Ukraine. There's conflict between Japan and China over islands in the Pacific. The Asian allies we have are all nervous. The real question, Harris, is where is the United States?
Can we pop up that map real quickly of Iraq? Because I want to show everybody this too. Ramadi could be the next to fall. It's seeing some of the same al-Qaeda buildup this weekend. And earlier on Fox News, Britt Hume said, though, this about keeping U.S. presence there. Watch.
The American people would not be happy with a continued American presence in Iraq. American people are never happy with foreign interventions. It is the job of a president as leader to bring people along about such things. We have stationed troops in places all over the world for decades, and the net effect in most cases has been that they've helped to keep the peace. It is a role from which this president has shrunk.
John, why didn't we keep more people there?
Well,
and you're saying maybe to that.
Yeah,
what your thought?
they couldn't reach an agreement on how many troops were going to stay and what their role was going to be. And it's not the same as leaving troops in South Korea or West Germany after those wars. Not the same. This is leaving American soldiers on Muslim territory with a government that doesn't want to be seen. I'm talking about the government in Baghdad as a puppet of the United States.
And in
Afghanistan,
as well.
too. That's right. So it's a different world. And let's face it, there's no thirst in America to stay in these places. People want to get out. Obama said he would get out. Bush already entered an agreement to get out before Obama got in there. The country's had enough of Iraq. It's terrible to see, but it's
Ambassador Bolton today was saying that both administrations really have dealt with this in a way that got us to this point to some degree. But now this current president is the one who has to make the decisions to go forward.
He does. The problem, Harris, is we have no strategy. There is no American view of the world to combat our enemies and those like Putin who seek to dominate through coercive means.
And by the way, Doug, no fear of the United States.
There's no fear of the United States.
They don't think Obama will do anything to
Well,
them.
red lines get crossed, John, and there's no consequences.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, this is not a president who publicly has talked very much about his foreign policy in his 2 terms.
Why would he?
But the one time that we do remember a lot was the red line with Syria, and he backed away from that real quickly. Iran, and now developing centrifuges because they found some fine print in the deal that they think they can work with. Republicans, though, want to come with a backup plan with these sanctions. We're in a new year. What are they going to do?
Not just Republicans, Democrats too want a backup plan. Here's the thing, that agreement has yet to be implemented. Maybe this month it will be implemented. And until it's implemented, it's not, so they can do anything they want. Ultimately, let's say January 15th, they put that thing in. We have 6 months to make a lasting
But John,
deal.
there are real problems with it. First, 2 hardliners have gone on the negotiating committee in Iran. And second, with the Senate considering amendments and additional sanctions, it isn't clear to me whether there will be implementation. Bottom line, Iran is another example where our policy is failing.
You know, you were talking about how all of this takes the mind and the eye off of domestic issues. Let's just check in on how Americans view this president. You know, every Sunday we do this at 1 p.m. Eastern. We check the Gallup poll, which came out, and the president is sitting firmly at 53% disapproval. That is a huge negative. How does the president change this in the new year? Real quickly?
It's going to be very tough. He's going to need to get something done on the debt ceiling. He's going to need to get immigration done. He's going to need to get something done that involves bipartisanship. Bottom line, I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think he is going to be able to increase from that very low 40% level.
I'd add one other thing, Doug. If the third quarter economic numbers, which were startlingly good, if they were to repeat themselves all throughout 2014, where we had over 4% growth, that should generate new job growth. That will help him a little bit.
But we're getting good news, and his numbers still are at close to record lows, John.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, should NSA leaker Edward Snowden be granted clemency? Now, this was something that I tweeted out. You guys retweeted me.
Yeah.
Fiery words today from New York Congressman Peter King on that very subject. He's lashing out at a fellow Republican, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who now suggests leniency for Snowden. Here's a bit from each of them.
I don't think we can selectively apply the law. So James Clapper did break the law, and there is a prison sentence for that. So did Edward Snowden. I don't think Edward Snowden deserves a death penalty or life in prison.
Rand Paul does not know what he's talking about. And Rand Paul is really spreading fear among the American people. And he also, today I understand in the show, was also comparing General Clapper to Snowden. I mean, to me, either he's totally uninformed or he's part of that hate America crowd that I thought leftists in the 1960s.
Our political insiders are back, John and Doug, and then joining us finally by satellite, we've missed you, Pat Caddell, former pollster and former President Jimmy Carter pollster and Fox News contributor. We've gotten our technical difficulties worked out. I want to get your view on Edward Snowden. I don't know if you saw before commercial break, a lot of fiery words being bandied about. You know, what's the right thing to do here?
Well, you know, I think that this is kind of minor play. I mean, look, it depends on whether you're one of the listeners or you're being listened to, I think, how people's attitudes on Snowden are. You know, one of the things that cost President Obama a lot of support among young people has been the entire NSA scandal and what's been revealed. And, you know, what happens to Snowden is almost irrelevant to the fact that it plays into what I keep finding is a major fear in this country, is the government has become the enemy of the people and not their, and therefore not to be trusted. And this has lent itself to that. And all of the machinations in Washington, all the attacks, the truth of the matter is the American people have not been dealt with on the up and up. And even the President's Commission has said there needs to be reform. We all want to be safe, but none of us like to have Big Brother in our lives.
Doug?
Well, I must tell you, to me, Snowden is a criminal. He betrayed his country. He betrayed his oath. But Pat is right to say that this points out how the citizenry is basically being taken advantage of by our government, being intruded upon, and the image of us being weak overseas but intruding over and overreaching at home is a difficult pill for me to swallow.
You know what's interesting, Pat, that you said? It's that an issue like this could color a group of people and their vision for this president, a group that was so important to getting him elected, young people.
Absolutely. It has turned, you know, between Obamacare, but particularly it started with the NSA. A major constituency for the president, a group of support for the Democrats, has been shaken. Now, the Republicans haven't been able to figure out where they stand. They're divided between the Rand Pauls and the Peter Kings. The real question is, if you want, you know, it's about big government. It's about the fear that they're reading and taking in everything. And the problem is, at a time when the American people don't trust Washington and the way the government works, it is only exacerbates it, and it has really affected young people greatly.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. This has gotten some response because I asked people to tweet us. John Hinline says, Harris, it seems like the only people mad at Snowden are the ones that got caught lying to the American people. That issue of trust is so huge, John.
Yeah, it's huge. And the fight we saw between Senator Paul and Congressman King, and Congressman King is thinking of running for the Republican nomination for president. He's sort of from the establishment wing of the GOP, Rand Paul, the libertarian wing. And that fight that they had is emblematic of what is going on over Snowden inside the conservative movement. Half conservatives think the guy's a whistleblower. The other half think he's a criminal.
I can't imagine, because I know I heard Pat say this, and Doug, you've said it before too, that this won't be one of those campaign issues that people run on or don't run on. But when you talk about demographics and trying to get people to go your way, if this is one of the things that gets people to open their eyes, do Republicans have an opportunity now?
They do have an opportunity. The real question for them is, how do you tie in the concern that Pat spoke of about Snowden with young people to this larger sense of weakness around the world to craft a positive view of the U.S.'s role and what the appropriate security state should be. The Republicans haven't done it. The Democrats certainly not. It's a big void, Harris. 80% of the American people are basically saying, where do we stand?
I want to pop up one more thing. Can we put that congressional approval rating, the most recent one, up on the screen? January of last year, this time, 16, went down again in November and then came back up just a little bit, although the disapproval is even higher now at 79%. Pat, I know that you've been looking at what Americans want in terms of a new messenger. A new messenger. Who is the new messenger?
Well, I don't know who the new messenger is. It is what we're seeing is, and I've never seen anything like this, the void in American politics. We might as well have alternate universes. Snowden is just a minor example of this. The establishment in Washington and what the political class and the media and most of the mainstream media class think are important and what works. This fight with Democrats and Republicans, is liberals and conservatives, is not what the American people want. They see, and this is a huge opportunity, they see a government they believe is corrupt, not for them, that rigs the system, and most of all, they see us not getting solutions. particularly on the economy, where they think it's a two-track economy, and that crony capitalism dominates. The alternate universe is it's as much as 3/4 of the American people or more looking for not just one person, but for an alternative politics, and a potential movement exists unlike anything I've seen. And the question is whether the system can suppress all of this, and I'm not sure it can.
Wow. I tell you, I want to continue the conversation with the political insiders, and I bet you do too. So here's your opportunity. On Twitter, you can do it at FN Insiders, or on our website, live.foxnews.com, every Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern.